tagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro, gol!
Hello and welcome to the AC Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host Samit Paul, and as always I'm joined by my good friend Jason Brown. JB, how you doing?
Yeah, doing alright, mate. Just a shame Milan aren't doing the same.
Exactly, very true, mate. Now that I've calmed down, Jason, I'm sad to say we've got an awful performance and a terrible result to discuss tonight. We'll break down what went wrong against Sampdoria, go through our player ratings and discuss Marco Rossoneri's comments after the game. Just want to quickly start though with a conversation I had with a friend before the game. We discussed how, like the Lazio game, this was a proper test, and to be quite frank, we've now bottled both of them. What does it say about us, Jason? Because, you can't just keep rattling off these easy wins in the Europa League and against inferior sides in Serie A, and to make that point, we barely just saw off a couple of them as well. We're falling short when it gets tough at this point early in the season. Is that a reason to be concerned for you, or is this just early teething problems that you expected would come with so many new players in the squad?
I guess you're right in terms of teething problems. It like you said, brand new squad, 11 players brought in the summer. So you'd expect there to be some teething problems. My only concern is the manner of the defeats. I mean, the performances haven't been good. There haven't been any heart, or seems like there's no real desire to go out there. And like you say, 2 big tests, 2 away games, 2 defeats, which is very poor, especially after the Lazio game. The fact that it was such a bad result, 4-1 defeat, you'd think that the boys would be even more determined to go out, next away game and show that they've improved since the last outing, which they failed to do.
Yeah, couldn't agree with that anymore. In my ESPN player ratings, under positives, I actually wrote none. There was literally nothing that I could pick out that was positive about today. Like you said, the manner of the defeat was the most disappointing. I mean, from the first minute, you literally could tell we just looked lacklustre. We were off the pace, sloppy passing, left, right and centre, no composure on the ball. And all of that just added to be an absolute recipe for disaster. And it says a lot that we failed to even manage a single shot on target. So yeah, that's all there needs to be said, really. Negative, like I said, though, the most disappointing part of it was just the attitude of the players. Just didn't seem up for it. I don't know what it was. It was, if the quality's not there and you're not stringing the passes together, that's one thing. But, to not match the commitment, the urgency, the pressing of the opposition, even if they're inferior, there's no excuse for that for me. You need to meet them head on in that sort of aspect of the game and make your additional quality count. And that simply wasn't there today. So honestly, it was a very frustrating 90 minutes, and I definitely won't be watching the highlights of that one anytime soon. But before we get into the player ratings, just get your thoughts on Montella. We've had a few comments we'll get to later on. A lot of people blaming him. He did really, really frustrate me on this occasion. I've given him 4 out of 10 for his rating. Honestly, Jace, I was watching the whole first half and we never even looked like we were going to create anything, put any sort of pressure on Sampdoria whatsoever. The fact that pattern of play continued into the second half for 10, 15, 20 minutes, Montella still didn't make a change. And it took a Sampdoria goal before he made his first double substitution in the 78th minute. I was tearing my hair out. It was driving me absolutely insane. If something's not working, you don't wait for the opposition to do something and then react to it. Surely you've got to be proactive and make that change when you clearly can tell that your team is really struggling to do anything positive. Is that fair, or do you think at 0-0 away from home, you're in the game, just see how it goes, or what's your take on that?
No, I think it's completely fair. Like you say, we got away with it in the first half, the fact that we went in at 0-0. And that should be a sign to Montella, in my opinion. I think, it was clear that we were missing a creative spark. So that's a perfect time to change it. You say to the boys, we were lucky in that first half. We should be 1-0, possibly 2-0 down. Sapato was very wasteful, so it could have easily been 2. You take that opportunity, the fact that it's still 0-0, and you make some changes, and hopefully you go out there fresh in the second half and you turn the game around. But he failed to do that, and like you say, waited until they did take the upper hand, and then by that time it was too late.
No, fair enough. I think he's deserving of his criticism after today, so we'll get to that in a bit. But No excuses from him. So let's get stuck into these player ratings then, Jace. Let's kick off with Donnarumma. I've given him a 6 out of 10. I don't think he could have done a lot on either goal. Didn't have much else to do, but kind of stayed alert, stepped up when he needed to. So a fair 6 from me.
Yeah, I agree. 6. Like you say, he wasn't at fault for any of the goals. His defence in front of him was quite poor, and he did pull off a pretty decent save, I think, late into the second half when it was 1-0. I think it was then, or it might have just been before we went 1-0 down. But yeah, he did all he could do. I think it's unfair to blame him for any of the goals. So 6 is a fair result.
One man who you can blame for the goals is next up, is Christian Zapata. What are you giving him?
I've given him a 3. I think, yeah, very poor. I think he was too concerned with giving his cousin an easy time, wasn't he? Yeah, very, very poor today. I think definitely worst player on the pitch, in my opinion. At fault for both goals. Poor on the clearance for the first, and then, he slipped for the second. So definitely one for him. One game there, I think he would want to forget pretty soon.
Absolutely. 4 out of 10 for me. Not been as harsh, but I can certainly see where you're coming from. Yeah, you're right. At fault for both goals. The clearance was an absolute joke. Just generally lost the duel with his cousin and just shouldn't be in the team next week.
Yeah.
Living off that goal against Inter from last year still, I think. So he needs to get out of the team next week. Bonucci, I've given him a 5. His distribution was great. Sprayed amazing pinpoint passes down the field as we expect him to, but I still feel like he needs to be a bit more resolute, a bit more commanding in the heart of the defence. I don't think he's found his best form defensively. So for me, it's a 5.
Yeah, I agree. I've gone 5. I think same points really. He's looking more like the Bonucci that we know in terms of, like you say, his distribution of things, but he's still just a little bit off the pace for me. Still getting overrun at the back. People passing him a bit too easily, but hopefully he'll get that resoluteness that we're used to. But yeah, 5 this week.
Romagnoli gets a 6. I think he was the best out of the lot at the back 3. Didn't make any mistakes. Was decent on the ball. Did his job well, I guess, in a solid shift. Nothing to be shouted about, but yes, a 6 for him.
Yeah, I've gone 6 as well. Same points really. Best defender, even though that wasn't hard today, but. Yeah, definitely just looked a bit more about it in terms of what we're doing in the match. I think, it's kind of hard to fault him. He was probably as frustrated as we were with the performance. But yeah, he can hold his head fairly high. I think he didn't do much wrong.
Ignacio Abate, what are you giving him, Jace?
Giving him a 5. Thought he was average. Again, probably getting overrun a bit too much at the back, same as Bonucci in terms of players passing him too easily. But yeah, 5. I don't think he can be too proud of his performance.
No, echo those points, giving him a 5 as well. I think he infuriated me getting flagged offside so many times. It's quite simple to read the line and not be offside, but he clearly struggled with that aspect of the game. Yeah, I think he just lost his mini battle with Strinic. I just don't think he did well defensively or attacking, so a 5 for Abate. Kessie, Jace, what's your man Kessie getting?
Kessie disappointed me. Obviously, you know how much I like Kessie, but I've given him 4 this week. Don't know if I'm being too harsh, but I just felt he didn't do much. Had the one time he got through late on in the match, spurned that chance, but I just think generally he was quite poor today. Just didn't really show much of what we know he can do, but I think we mentioned it last week. We thought he might be looking a little bit tired, but yeah. I don't know what it is. I think he's definitely not up to the pace that we've seen, especially pre-season. But yeah, he just looked off it today.
Yeah, I don't think you've been harsh. I think, if anything, I've been quite generous. I've given him a 5, but I completely echo your points. He needs a rest. I honestly believe he needs to be... If he's not on the bench in midweek for the Europa League game, I'll be stunned, because no way should he be playing another 90 minutes on Thursday, then again next weekend. So yeah, I agree with all your points. Looks sluggish, sloppy, not himself. He's been dominating games early in the season and putting himself about, but it's just not him at the moment. I think it's his heavy legs, so needs a rest, and I think he'll bounce back. So 5 from me. Lucas Biglia gets a 6. I think for me, even though you made some good points about Romagnoli as well, to be fair, I think him, and we'll come to Rodriguez in a bit, are the two that can keep their heads held high. I think Biglia, again, not his finest performance, not amazing to say the least, but I think he was capable of making something happen. He kept the ball moving in midfield, wasn't really given time. He was pressed quite quickly as well, but I think overall it was a tidy performance, so I'm going to give him a 6.
Yeah, I've gone with a 6 as well. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I still think Romanoli probably was one of our best players in terms of, he kept giving his maximum effort. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Bigger did much wrong. It's difficult because he is in that vital, pivotal position, and we were getting overrun quite a lot. But yeah, I think he did all he could do. I think generally players around him weren't helping him out at all. But yeah, 6 is fair, I think.
Yep, good stuff. Bonaventura gets a 5 from me. I think he had sort of moments where, whether it was a driving run or a clever bit of skill, but for me, I just don't think he's fully fit. He's still lacking that bit of sharpness to be himself. You can see the commitments there. He's the only one that kind of pressed with a bit of aggressiveness. But yeah, not a particularly great game, so I'm going to give him a 5.
Yeah, echo those points. I think there's not much more you can say about his performance. Like you said, I thought he was bang average today, but that was probably, you could say that about every single player, to be honest. But yeah, 5 for me.
Good man. Ricardo Rodriguez, giving him a 6. Like I said, along with Biglia, I thought those two were decent. Again, not a great performance, but decent in possession, prepared to get stuck in, put in a shift. Deserved better from the other players around him. Didn't help, but I think in the circumstances he did well, so I'm going to give him a 6.
Yeah, 6 as well. I think, like you say, he seemed to want to try and at least bring the game to Sampdoria. I think he was trying to get forward. He always looked like he could be dangerous, but like you say, I think the players around him let him down. Didn't give up as well, like kept going.
Yep.
I'm really impressed with Rodriguez. We've mentioned this a few times, that he looks like he's really, really on it, or like wants to be. I think with his position, obviously what he does, it all depends on who's around him. So he can get up, he can put crosses in, but if no one's there to receive him, it's kind of going to go to waste. But I think he seemed like he always wanted to try and get up regardless. Even though we were playing poorly today, he looked like he wanted to keep going. So yeah, 6, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Suso, what are you giving him?
Giving him a 4, unfortunately. Came close, but I don't think he did enough at all. He like I said, like when we were talking about the match, I think we missed the creative spark, and Suso really should be that guy, and he didn't really do much. So I've had to give him a 4.
Yeah, again, I think I'm being generous. I think 4 is fair. I've given him a 5. I think he was desperately disappointing. We've seen it from him before. He needs to create that bit of magic to help us in sticky situations. It's just a lack of consistency. I think he was anonymous and pretty ineffective today, and that really hurt us. And like you said, in that creative role behind Kalinic, we needed him to spark something for us, and he didn't do it. So 5 from me, which is a shame. But and then to round things off, Jace, Kalinic.
Kalinic, I might have been a little generous, but I've given him a 6. I think he looked very isolated today. I don't blame him for that. I think Suso should have been a bit closer. He did have a few chances. He looked like especially towards the end of the game, a few shots went over the bar. I think he did try, and his effort. I like Kalinic. I've got quite a soft spot for him. I think he's. I really wanted to do well, especially the fact that a lot of people think he's a dud signing, but I do want him to do well. And I think he did show, obviously after his performance midweek. Last week. Sorry, I think he was up for this game, but just kind of isolated by his teammates. But yeah, I think he did all he could do, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I've given him a 5, but I think maybe I'm harsh. But I agree. Too isolated. Didn't have the support he needs to kind of feed off. He did make a few clever runs in the channels, and he had that chance, like I said, that went over the top. But yeah, I just think it's a bit difficult to be too critical of him, considering he didn't get the support he needed around him. So
Montella should have changed it, shouldn't he? Should have brought someone up
100%
with him. Yeah, I think it's unfair to. It's always difficult when you're playing up top by yourself and you just literally by yourself. No, you can't really do much, can you? So
absolutely not. No, good stuff. So the substitutes don't get ratings off us, but I did want to make a couple of points to echo those thoughts that you just said there. I think Catrone and Calhanoglu should have come on a lot earlier. I think we've spoken about it on numerous occasions, what Cutrone offers to the team, aside from his goals, obviously, but he raises the tempo and the effort, and it filters through to the rest of the team, I feel, that energy, pressing and being aggressive and leading from the front. I don't think he had enough time to make an impression, and I think that falls on Montella. So, and then to add to your point as well, Suso wasn't making it happen, so why not chuck Hakan on and see if he can create that bit of magic. So those two should have been earlier for you as well.
Definitely. I think, like you say, Suso wasn't out the races today, so definitely would have made that change a lot earlier. Cutrone as well. His like you say, his energy. That's what we were lacking. We were lacking that energy. We were lacking that desire, and he definitely brings that. So, I probably would have brought Cutrone on at half time, and then given Suso a bit more time. And if the introduction of Cutrone hadn't improved things, then definitely would have taken Suso off for Hakan a lot earlier than he did. And they've come on when we're trying to chase the game, which changes the whole dynamic as well. So they weren't really given a fair chance, I think, to make an impression, especially with how poor everyone was playing. They definitely should have got a look in sooner, in my opinion.
100%. We'll leave Fabio Barini. I don't want to spark a hate campaign in the comments, so we'll give him a week off. Yeah. Good stuff. So the next thing I wanted to discuss was comments from Marco Fossone. He had some very public comments to make. I thought potentially it could have been made in-house with Montella and the team, but it's just quickly what he had to say. We've had some alarm bells today. We are angry and have come to talk because these defeats should not be considered as routine. Milan should not lose against opponents considered weaker than ourselves. Jace, we've given Fossone and Mirabelli a lot of positive praise over the summer for being so transparent with the fans, but I kind of feel on this occasion that was possibly a little bit unnecessary. Definitely worth a conversation in-house with the manager and with the players, but to kind of throw that extra pressure on them, for being really poor and a terrible result, I think that was a little bit unnecessary for me. But do you think that was right? Do you think it was a good kind of stern position to take and saying it's not acceptable and get a reaction out of them, or do you think that should have been a private conversation?
I think it should have been a private conversation, to be honest, but I think Fossone knows what he's doing. I think he's sending a very clear message to Montella that this will not be tolerated and your job's not safe, to be honest. I know it's not really what we want to hear because I believe in Montella. I think he should get a full season, especially with all the new players that he's brought in. He does need time, but I think Fossone is right. It's not acceptable, especially like we talked about the manner of the performances. I think if we're coming off the back of 2 away defeats, but we've given everything we've got, and we've just missed out to, like you say, slightly better quality teams. But the fact that we've given 2 very lacklustre performances, I think Fossone's probably kind of just giving Montella a little bit of a gut check there to let him know this is not acceptable at all.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. It is your point, though. I think in terms of obviously the Lazio defeat was disappointing, but I walked away from that game gutted, but not furious, if you know what I mean. It was kind of like we capitulated either side of half time. The goals were terrible, and it was a horrible result. But we did give us a decent account of ourselves, in the opening 30 minutes, and then after the goal, we kind of pushed at the end, and there were positives to take from the game. But the manner of this defeat, there is literally no positive you can take, and for a club like Milan, that's just completely unacceptable. So I think from that angle, calling him out and just being honest, it's a fair game. So sure that will split opinion, but all good. We've had some comments on Twitter, Jace, so I'm going to rattle through those. Jerry Sufletta said during the game, it seems like the attacking plan is to get it in the box and appeal for a penalty as soon as possible. It sounds about right. John Siciliano, great that Milan can beat the very weak, but this is 2 tough teams that have made them look just as bad as last year's team. At Yi Genesis said Montella can't take Milan anywhere. And at McSheg said we need an experienced coach who knows how to set a team up. Montella isn't the right calibre, can't understand what the game plan was. And another one, before we get on to kind of wrap up on Montella, at MD Coop 3 said, obvious question first, why wait until the 73rd minute and a goal down for a sub? Can't defend him anymore, players looked flat and untidy. And at Ruby Naman said, I am afraid it is increasingly obvious that Montella is not good enough against any well-organised team or coach. He needs to be more flexible. That's a lot of hate going our manager's way there, Jace. It's a reoccurring theme in the comments. Definitely agree with most of it. I think he has to take the blame, the responsibility today. Purely for me, the biggest factor, obviously, like we mentioned earlier, was waiting so long to make the subs. But are the alarm bells ringing for you with Montella at this stage, with those two bad defeats away from home? Or, again, is it too early to kind of start criticising him too much?
No, I think alarm bells are ringing a little bit in terms of, it's very clear that he does have a philosophy, and it just may not be working in these types of games. I forgot, was it MD Coop 3 who said he needs to be more flexible in the Twitter comments? I think, that's a very poignant point. I think he's too kind of stubborn in his beliefs, and these are the type of games where you can't just turn up wanting to play your game. You have to be adjusting, especially away. You need to adjust to your opponent, and if that means keeping it tight, playing it boring football for the first 30 minutes and just getting a foothold on the game, then do it. But going out and thinking you can try and win the game in the first 10-15 minutes isn't going to work, because these teams, you can't just roll over. No matter how much quality you have on the pitch, you need to go out there with the right mentality, the right attitude, and the right type of game plan. And I think he's definitely failing in that department.
Yeah, I have to agree with those points. The other thing I would argue as well, do you think he's getting his rotation wrong this week? In terms of, we've got Rijeka at home in the Europa League. Today we had €60 million plus worth of talent on the bench through Silva and Hakan alone. This was the harder game. Surely you'd have your big boys, your big guns on the pitch for this one, and then rotate and rest people on Thursday. Is that a fair statement as well?
Yeah, it is, but it's difficult to, Kalinic had such a good game last time out. I think it's, with such a big squad, I can understand why he wants to reward good performances with, starts in the following game. But I do agree. I think even if he had started Silva and Kalinic, or kind of told Kalinic, this is the realities of playing for a big club with a very strong squad. It's all about rotation. But I think it's been difficult for him. It will be difficult for him with such a talented squad, unless he makes it very clear that, if I drop you, it's nothing personal. It's just we want to compete on all fronts, and we've got the players, so we're going to rotate. But it's whether or not he's made that very clear to players that he's brought in, or if he's promised certain players certain game time, which, that's when things start to get messy. When you can't fulfill your promises, that's when you get unrest in the dressing room, and it's not what we want to see at all.
Certainly isn't, my man. So Rijeka on the week Thursday, and we've got Roma at home and then Inter away, or away if you like, following two games. Bit nervous, bit apprehensive moving forward now with two big tests in Serie A to come?
I think the good thing about it is, the away game is practically at home.
Yeah.
So I think, we've had issues with our last two away games. So if we can get back to winning ways at home, obviously Roma won't be easy. But I think, even a good performance and a draw, I'll take that. It's just about, going out and showing that we can perform against these stronger sides. And then, obviously we want to win the derby. I think derbies are always a little bit different, are they? You kind of form goes out the window. It's all about players giving 110% on the day for the bragging rights. So hopefully we see that in the next couple of weeks, and we can get back to some winning ways.
Echo those points, mate. I really do hope so. I think, Roma test is a big one for me. I think I wouldn't call it a decisive sort of turning point in our season, but stick a good performance in there, get a decent result, and these question marks steadily start to go away, and including those ones over Montella's head as well. So.
Yeah, because we want to be up there with Roma, don't we? End of the season, so we kind of need to show now that we can go toe to toe with those types of teams.
Exactly. And then the last comment, just to round things up, was from Nathan on Twitter. How do you start Zapata? How do you let him stay on after 30 minutes? How do you let him play 90 minutes? How do you sub Barini on that right wing back? Insane. I feel your pain, Nathan. It wasn't a good day at the office.
It's weird. It is when you mention that as well. With that, we've got Riaka midweek. Why is Zapata starting this game? It's like you say, it is weird.
Certainly was, Jace. But we'll have to put this one behind us now. Move forwards. Big win on Thursday, fingers crossed, and then, like you said, let's all eyes on Roma. Hopefully, another positive result there, but we shall see. Jace, I think that wraps us up for now. Unless you had anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we've covered it all. Just very poor, and hopefully we don't see performances like this anytime soon.
Good stuff. So we'll be back on Thursday. Please subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at AC Milan Talk 1. But until Thursday, Jace, nothing left but say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye to the people.